Matthew 27:38 is where he's hanging on the cross and he's basically at his worst point, to where the one that John sees in Revelation is when he's in his glory, with the gold band girded over his chest.
Okay, you're saying this stuff. You're being accurate, but you're being very respectful. Okay.
That's just that's
All right. The image in Matthew 27:38, wouldn't that look be the image of a loser? Yeah. I mean, here's a guy that looks like a loser.
Okay, well,
he's crucified, but he's crucified. Hold on, slow down. He's crucified between what?
Two robbers.
Two robbers.
So it looks just like a criminal, like the other two.
So if you were walking down the street and you looked up and you saw him and you didn't know nothing about nothing, your image of Jesus would be what?
Of another criminal.
Of a criminal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Of a loser. Of a criminal. And so at one point we got this picture of what would appear to be a criminal, and then we get this picture of someone that is really quite different here in Revelation that John sees. Isn't that interesting? You know. Now, the other thing that I want to point out is that he saw him and he was clothed. He saw one like the Son of Man clothed in a robe, reaching to his feet. Now, I believe that Jesus was clothed in a robe, and I'm going to bang this drum almost all the way through the book of Revelation. So this is the first time I get to bang this drum, and I'm going to continue to bang this drum as we work through the book of Revelation. I can tell you that in advance. Because the reason, why would he be wearing a robe?
He's the king of kings, Lord of lords.
Why would he be wearing a robe?
Well, he was naked and humiliated on the cross.
Yeah, but we're not talking the cross. We're talking about John's vision here. He sees him in heaven, and he sees him wearing a robe. Why would he be wearing a robe? Go ahead.
It has something to do with his resurrection.
It has something to do with his resurrection. All right, now keep in mind my questions. I've told you over and over again that generally my questions, the way to answer my question is to go to the most simplistic thing that can come to your mind, not the most complicated.
Okay, so what's simplistic mean?
Very simple.
Okay, got it. Thank
Very,
you.
very simple.
Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So very elementary, very simple. Okay, you guys oftentimes want to respond to my questions from a theological point of view, or you want to make my questions and you respond from a tougher area. No, I'm asking these questions. Oftentimes my questions I'm asking, I want the most simplistic answer that can be given.
The most simple answer is so he's not naked.
Okay. and that is a way of describing it, and I would say that answers my question, but it's not stated the way that I want it stated. Okay? So does anybody want to give another way of stating it? Why is he wearing a robe?
So he's covered?
Covered what?
Covering his scars.
Part what? Correct. That's the key.
Okay.
The reason he's wearing a robe is because it's to cover his body. So what do we conclude from that?
He has a body.
He has a body.
Yes.
Okay. Now I know this is tough stuff. This is not rocket science, folks. Okay. Why is he wearing a robe? It's to cover his body. Okay. So therefore our presupposition is he has a body to cover. When you put a robe on, you're putting a robe on what?
On your body.
On a body. Okay? Keep that in mind. I'm going to go over this over and over and over again as we work through the book of Revelation, because I think that this is an extremely important point, and you're going to see the importance of it, not this week, maybe not next month, but you're going to start seeing the significance of the fact of the significance of a robe covering a body. Not covering a cloud, not covering some hovering spirit up there in eternity, but an actual robe, and it describes it's going down to the ankles, it's covering a body. So when we talk about a robe on somebody, the person the robe's on has a body, and that's why the robe's on. You follow the logic? Like I say, this isn't rocket science, but it's establishing what I consider to be a real benchmark point that is going to answer some questions for us down the line. Okay, that's why I'm making the point so big right now. Because if Jesus has got a body and he's wearing a robe, and we find somebody else in heaven down the line wearing a robe, we have to presume they have a body also. Okay, this is simple stuff. We can't say the reason Jesus is wearing a robe is because he's got a body, but we got somebody else who's wearing a robe that doesn't have a body. Doesn't make sense, does it? Okay, so that's what I'm trying to conclude, and the significance of that is very significant as we move on. Okay. Now, another thing it says here that Jesus was standing in the middle. He was clothed in a robe. Let's see, in speaking and having turned and saw the 7 lampstands and was in the middle of the lampstands. Now, why do you think Jesus was in the middle of the lampstands?
Because it was centered around him. The churches were centered around him.
Okay.
Because he's the important one. And the middle is always the best place.
He's the important one of what?
The church.
The church of the church.
The lampstands are the churches.
Oh, the lampstands are the churches?
Mm-hmm.
So he's in the midst.
And he's in the midst or in the middle? He's in the middle of the churches. And what
those
significance
churches-
is that?
It's built
He's
around
what
him.
those churches are about.
Pardon me?
He's what those churches are about. Or for. Or
He's what the church. He's what the church. He's what the church. The churches should worship.
right. He's
As he stands-
of them
stands in the
churches.
middle. He's of them. He is the church.
And he's everywhere.
That.
Yeah, but that principle doesn't apply to this. God, we can't bring the omnipresent principle into this topic here.
You could take it as the church as a whole. The church should be, he should be centered. The church should be based upon him.
That's what I'm.
And
Yeah.
then if we look at every individual, our lives should be revolved around Jesus. He should be in the middle.
But the point of it is, this isn't talking about a should be, it's talking about he was
Right. Okay.
in the middle of the churches. So it's not a case of where he should be, this is saying where he was.
Okay.
Right.
Well, he is what all. the
Now
churches worship.
why would it say he was actually there standing in the middle of the churches?
Maybe the persecution they're going through is to give them hope that he's there in their midst.
Anybody else? Well, I think that Anthony and Donna came pretty darn close to it. Don came pretty clse to it. Is that you don't have a church without Christ?
Right.
Okay, so he's in the middle. He is what makes a church a church. Now, if you got some other spin on it, my ears are all open. But it's placing him in the middle of the church because all churches are grown out of Christ, and he is in the middle of all churches.